Hola, chicas! Welcome to Encuentras Your Voice podcast, the vocal piece of Encuentras Media, to bring you all the hits and highlights of what is happening in the world of all things Latina. I'm your host, Consuelo Crosby, Peruana, structural engineer, mother, and Scorpio energy Latina, ready to hold the mic for you to share your valuable story of living in your authenticity and the success that it brings you. Join our sassy guests as they proudly share how it started, how it's going, and where they are headed to support and encourage the comunidad to amazing success. Your voice is powerful, and it's time we kick it up to maximum volume for everybody to hear. You want representation? Then you have come to the perfect comfort zone. Relax into this and feel a major part of something big, bold, and beautiful. Coming to you every Wednesday, 5 p.m. California time, but available to you anywhere in the world because our Latinidad is global. Love having you here, so sit back now and join the fun. Hola, chicas! Welcome to your favorite podcast, Encuentras Your Voice, where we learn valuable life lessons from mujeres who share their journey of self-discovery and the success that followed. I'm your host, Consuelo Crosby, coming to you every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Time from San Francisco, California. We love that you have subscribed to this podcast and continue to champion women who understand the life of all things Latina. Today's guest goes way out to the stratospheric reaches of the universe for what she has been through to pursue her passionate dream as an international orchestral conductor, only to realize that it wasn't her dream alone, but for every person who felt left out, pushed out, unseen, allowed in, but never accepted. Jessica Bejarano is the founder and music director of the San Francisco Philharmonic, cover conductor with the San Francisco Symphony, curator and scholar in residence with the San Francisco Opera, and serves as board member of the Association of California Symphony Orchestras. She's performed in European concert halls, from Russia to Romania, Spain, and Italy, and with Hall of Fame bands like Journey and legendary rapper Andre Nicotini. She is one of only 12 women worldwide accepted to conduct at the International Women's Conference in New York City, the first woman in history to guest conduct with the American Youth Symphony in Los Angeles, and ultimately leading her symphony to perform in the Tecate Alta Sinfónica, an emergence of classical music and urban Latino beats. And yet, with all this accolade, her main goal is to make classical music accessible and the norm for all people, so they feel welcome with a sense of belonging. It's all about representation to Jessica. Yet even with her East LA verve, there were so many times she wanted to quit. After receiving a fellowship for the master's program at UC Davis, a program that only accepts one student a year, she was threatened to be removed because she didn't fit the profile of an orchestral conductor. To the point the maestro told her, "Go back to your country. You won't be a conductor here in mine." But that was the moment Jessica realized that becoming a conductor was no longer about following her love of music and her dream to create it, but rather the need to demand representation of diversity in the privileged white male-dominated profession. And she never backed down. Instead, she stands strong in true authenticity. Tatted, queer, Latina from East LA who discovered classical music one day, the day that saved her life, and changed how we view orchestral conductors forever. Sit back, get comfy, grab some tissues, and make sure you have some room to get up and move because this one is going to take you for a ride. Welcome to Encuentras Your Voice podcast, Jessica. We are so honored and so excited for you to be here today and share your story with us. How are you doing today?
I am doing absolutely great. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's going to be great. It was such an honor to meet you and already be getting into a lot of the conversation that we know we want to share with all our listeners. So why don't you go ahead and start off with telling us about your heritage and what it was like for you growing up here in East LA?
Well, yes. So I am first generation Mexican American. My mother and father are both from Mexico. My father from Tabasco, Mexico, way down south, and my mom from Tijuana, Mexico. I was born in San Diego, raised in East LA, and eventually made my journey to this wonderful city of San Francisco. And that's my heritage in a nutshell.
So you were born here in California, so grateful you stayed or came back, as everyone will find out, came back to California. What was it like for you growing up in LA?
Growing up in East LA, there's a lot of, immigrant families there. It's predominantly Hispanic, very low income, not a lot of, art as far as the art that I'm in right now, which is like the symphony, the ballet, the opera. Like no one was, talking about how they have symphony tickets for the weekend. Like that was not part of any discussion or experience in East LA when I was there. It wasn't the safest neighborhood. The high school that I went to, we were voted at the time as high statistic high school, in highest top 10 in the country as highest incarceration rate of high school students, of teenage pregnancy, and murder. Being murdered because there's just so much gang and violence in that community. So if you were able to get through high school and not be one of those statistics that drop out, teenage pregnancy, incarceration, or murdered, you're doing okay, and that was like the threshold, like the bar. And I wanted more. And it's interesting because I come from such a large Hispanic family. So there wasn't an expectation of you have to be successful or a doctor or a lawyer or a conductor. It was just like, we just needed to, keep our head above water and survive. Mm-hmm. And that was the expectation. I left, East LA. I ended up at the University of Wyoming. And Wyoming and East LA are two very different places. It's very, very different, on so many different levels. Wyoming is very Republican. It's very Christian. It's very white. And I'm not those things. So, one thing that I've learned that I'm still learning is like, no matter where you're at in life, there's so many things that you can learn from that experience and take away. Mm-hmm. from that experience, and use it to your benefit. So yeah, East LA was different. It was unique. It was hard, but I think that experience made me the tough, hardworking person that I am today.
And you would have needed that when we hear the rest of your story, because coming from East LA and not having the exposure to the classical arts that you are in the center of right now, how did that transition even happen? How did you get into these classical arts?
So after high school, I attended Pasadena City College in Pasadena, California, which is still there, like in SoCal. And part of my scholarship as a music ed major is I had to play trumpet in 3 ensembles. So I did marching band because I did marching band in high school. I know that it's fun. The second ensemble that I joined is wind ensemble, and I've been in a wind ensemble before, comfortable, fun. So I had to pick a third ensemble, and I was like, what should I pick? And there was orchestra. And my friend signed up for it. So I was like, I should sign up for it too. And I remember walking into that first rehearsal and, it was this interesting combination of like different string instruments and different woodwind instruments and different brass instruments, percussion. So it was a musical environment I had never been in. I had never been in a symphony orchestra. I'd never listened to orchestral music. None of that. And we were rehearsing Beethoven Symphony No. 5, super classic.
Mm-hmm.
And Ralph Vaughan Williams' Dona Nobis Pacem, which also had singers. So they brought singers in at some point during the rehearsal. And I remember just holding my trumpet, like looking around and listening to everything that was happening and being, this is awesome. This is great. This is an incredible combination of instruments and incredible music. And I love this. This is like, wow. And so after that rehearsal, I drove to Tower Records when it existed and went to the classical music section and bought as many classical CDs as my arms could hold. And I went home that night. Rehearsal got out at 10 p.m. I went home after buying all those CDs and just stayed up all night listening to classical music. And I was like in tears because I was so moved by the beauty of this music, but also shocked that I was 18 years old and this was the first time that I'm listening to it. It was always in me. It was just like that rehearsal and listening all night to classical music. That ship of that love, and passion for that music was finally activated, and it was activated full force. I was just, at that point, I was in love. Like, this is for me. This is my music.
Wow. Yeah, 18 years old, the first time you hear classical music, but you were born with it and you're born to do what you're doing. And yet, did you find yourself, Latina from East LA, as one of the only ones going down this route in classical music?
Yes. And if I'm wrong, I would love to meet the other people in East LA when I was there that were doing, or, that are doing the same thing that I'm doing, or that fell in love with classical music. But yeah, it wasn't a cultural experience or expectation. My mother, had a fourth grade education. She worked at Toys R Us. She worked at a little hamburger stand flipping burgers, and she worked at a casino as a custodian, like back to back to support us. And so, there was no extra money to go to any kind of concert, to any kind of music experience. And the music that we did have at home was the music that my mom loved, which was a lot of her Spanish music, a lot of her, dancing, a lot of her salsa. And so I saw the love of music through my mom, but it was Spanish music. And it was, for her, it was singing and dancing. But still, it was this wonderful, like really deep love, of music that she had that I think just transferred to me, but in the different genre, which is, what I do now, which is opera and symphony.
That is part of the cultura, is that love of music. I think it sinks really down into your soul, and it brings the joy out. And how it brings the joy out, we're finding, is very individual. Still loving this classical music at that moment, did you think like, oh, I'm just going to take this as far as I can go? Or what were you thinking that had you keep seeking higher education in the field?
Sometimes I wonder that myself. How did I get this far? How did I get here? One of the things that I saw was my mom suffer. She didn't have an education, so she had the minimal jobs, the hardworking jobs, the jobs where people are ungrateful towards her. And I saw her struggle to make minimum wage, take care of, her little family, me, my brother, and my sister. And I remember seeing her struggle so much and thinking that I don't want that life for myself. Like, I don't want to not have an education and have these minimal jobs. Like, I want to do something bigger and better to honor my mom's hard work, to honor her journey, and to give back to her and to the name of our family. And so the best thing that I can do was to do what I love, which was music, and to go to college for that. And, I'd come from a very large, extensive Mexican family. There's about, I think, 80 of us, and out of very large family. And out of all of us, only 4 of us have gone to college. It's not a family expectation, but it's something that I innately wanted for myself and for my mother. I had this goal that one day, once I would graduate from college and get my degree and get a nice paying job, that I would knock on her door and tell her, today you're going to quit your job because I'm going to take care of you for the rest of your life. Yeah. You get to kick up your feet, put your hands behind your head and just relax. My success is her success. It was important for me to break the cycle of our family and do something different for her and for me.
To honor her. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, beautiful story. Beautiful. Between that and your innate strength, your strength from having gone through what you went through growing up, you chose to go into conducting specifically rather than be along in the musical areas, as part of a symphony, as being a musician. Not many people would ever think of being a conductor. How did that come to be? Because that's a big leap from being around the music, being part of the music, but being the conductor, there's only one. And again, you are finding yourself as the only one. How did that come about?
So I was off to college to become a music teacher. My degree was Bachelor of Music Education. So I was going to be a music teacher at a high school or at a college. So I already had this love of classical music from the earlier experience that I had. I was in college, on track to get my music education degree. And part of the degree requirements is that you have to take a course in conducting. And in that course, all majors, whether you're going to be a choir director, a jazz ensemble director, a band director, an orchestra director, an opera, whatever, you are taught by a professional conductor on the art of conducting and how to properly read a score, how to run a rehearsal, how to inspire musicians, technique, gesture, so forth. So when I was taking that course, I fell in love with the art of conducting. I fell in love with it. And it was just this epiphany where I was just like, oh, I'm going to be a conductor. There it is. Boom. I'm going to graduate from the University of Wyoming. I'm going to go to grad school for conducting, and I'm going to go down that path now. And I did not do the research as far as women in the field, the history of women in the field, or the lack thereof. I did not do the research. I'm glad I didn't do the research because, we're less than 30% of the population in this country. And I think it's worse in Europe. I will never forget the moment where I knew I wanted to become a conductor. I was on the second floor. The carpet was brown. The walls were a little off gray. They were made of brick. I remember so clearly. It was a moment. It was a life-changing moment where I made a decision very innocently, and for the sake and just the love of music and wanting to do this, not knowing what was going to lie ahead in that pursuit.
So you love the whole idea of creating the entire sound, the music, and we're more focused on that power from within you and bringing it out. But like you say, for anybody more familiar with the classical musics, we know it to be a white, male-dominated, privileged place. So you say you having to apply for a master's in conducting, and those two, you being brilliant, a Latina from LA, against this white male-dominated privilege, and yet you make it. You make it into the master's for conducting, and what do you find?
So I graduate from the University of Wyoming. I get accepted to UC Davis for my master's in orchestral and choral conducting, and they accept one student a year. So I was the student that was accepted into the program. And I had an orchestral professor and I had a choral professor. And the orchestral professor he was not a nice person. He was not welcoming, and he made the journey very, very difficult for me. And it wasn't even about tough love. Like I've experienced tough love. I know what that is. This was not tough love. This was just like, a horrible, horrible experience. And all I wanted was his pearls of wisdom, the education and degree so I can move on and continue to do what I was so passionate about and what I was ultimately destined to do. But him and I would have weekly score study sessions in his office. And this one day he just stopped and he like rolled back in his chair and crossed his arms. And he's like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Serious about what?" He's like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, about what?" And he pointed at me from the top of my head down to my feet, back up. And he's like, "Are you serious about becoming a conductor?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely. I'm dedicated. I'm passionate. I'm in. I will do the work. Yes, I am serious." And then he proceeded to say, "Well, then go back to your country because it's not going to happen in mine. Get the F out of my office." And I was shocked. It was shocking. It was extremely shocking. And, I'm trying to grab my bag and my things and my pencils are falling everywhere. And, I just like instantly left as quickly as I could. And I didn't even go to the rest of my classes that day. I went home and I remember just staring at the wall and thinking, if this is how academia is going to treat me, where in academia, they're supposed to embrace you and nurture you and prepare you and educate you for the real world. If this is how academia is treating me, what is the real world going to treat me like? Like, do I really not belong? Like, should I just give up? Like, this is too hard. This is too abusive. This is stressful.
Painful.
I give up. Yeah. So for a split second, I said, I give up. But then there was a voice in me that said, no, 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 no. Do not let anyone take away your path, your dreams, your passion, your goals. They're yours, not his. And so I had to learn in that moment, how to take a no and turn it into a yes, how to take a negative and turn it into a positive, how to use negative energy and use it to catapult me even further than I thought I could go. And so I learned resilience. I learned how to be incredibly resilient in the face of adversity. These situations that sometimes are, negative, horrific, horrible, there's a way to find a silver lining in the experience and how to use that experience to make you a stronger person. It made me hungry for this career. Not just for the love of music, but now for the sake of representation, so it's not just about becoming a conductor and bringing the music alive. Yes, very, very important. But now there's something else that's in the mix and it's representation for me to stand strong on the podium in the concert hall, whether it's the symphony, the ballet and the opera, and represent not only for future conductors, but for audience members as well, for musicians on the stage, for patrons, for board members, and so my work has become bigger than I ever thought it was.
You thought reaching head conductor, of which you are one, internationally known, would be the top goal. And then once you got there, it's like, oh, wait, I have even more presence, even more of a mission. Because you brilliantly made your way to becoming head conductor, to founding the San Francisco Philharmonic. Now, after describing what you have so far, I don't know how you got the energy anymore. Or yes, you're strong and yes, you're fiery, and the motivation of caring for your mother and all keeps you fueled. But now you're a head conductor and you still decide to go further with founding the San Francisco Philharmonic. What inspired that?
Well, I've always described my career as swimming against the tide. It always felt like I was in that space, but I was an outlier. Like I was allowed, but I wasn't really truly accepted. So I wanted to create a space where being me, looking like me, being a queer, Latina, tatted, comes from an impoverished family, can be in this space and not be just like a marker, and a banner for DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, but no, like really exist and belong and be accepted as just part of the environment. If you're a woman, and sorry to say, but if you're a woman that comes in with knowledge and passion and presence, that can be misconstrued as like, she's a bitch, And so, but if you come in a little too soft and a little too weak as a conductor, then that's horrible, because you need to be a very strong leader. You're leading 75 people and inspiring them, And so it's like you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Where do I exist? Where can I be where it's okay for me to be me? And I was finding it very difficult to really find that orchestra, that community, that environment that would truly welcome me. I remember I did a conducting workshop in Europe, and I'm not going to say where in Europe, but they truly accept 20 conductors from around the world. And it's usually a ton of men, and a few women that are accepted. And even there in that environment, women are treated differently. We were at this workshop. It was 15 male conductors, 5 female conductors. And every morning we would conduct for the maestro in front of all the other conductors. There was 5 female conductors. One of the female conductors, she would do the makeup and the hair, and she would get all dressed up. And that's great. She really loved to look her best. And when she stood up to conduct for the maestro said to her in front of all of us, he said, he goes like, out of all the female conductors here, you are the most beautiful female conductor. So let me teach you and show you how to use your beauty to get the most out of the orchestra. And I remember just sitting there like, oh my God, like what about the rest of us female conductors? Like, are we top liver because we're not the most beautiful one? And secondly, like, what does beauty have to do with using your beauty to extract the best out of the musicians? Like, I'm sure he has never told a male conductor, you have incredible pecs. Let me teach you how to use those pecs to get the most out of the orchestra. So it's maybe they keep the beat. Maybe, with like a little flex. Flex. So it's these experiences, and that's just one. And I have many stories that have that. And so I was done with it. So I was like, I'm going to create my own, and it's going to be exactly what it should be. And so if you look at the SF Philharmonic, the board of directors are diverse. The musicians that you will see in the SF Philharmonic are diverse. The audience members that come into our concert hall are diverse. The conductor on the podium is extremely diverse. So diversity and inclusion are incredibly important to me. Incredibly important. And it's not just a banner and a flag that we wave. It's something that we execute, every single day. That's what we do.
Your strength is insane. Your strength, but your self-love, because there's so many moments along your journey to this point where a lot of us would have just scaled ourselves back in order to be accepted, to find that comfort for everybody's, okay, we'll identify with you at that point. Tremendous, because we do need your entire authentic self out there, front and center. This is something very epic. What has been the response to you starting this symphony?
When I had the idea, I was flying back from Bulgaria. I was working at the Stars Agora State Opera House. I was the assistant conductor for a production there. And I was flying back from Bulgaria, and on that plane trip back to San Francisco, I had the idea of like being a founder of my own orchestra. And by the time I landed, I already had a little blueprint. I never founded anything, so I was like, I'm just going to start one, bada bing, bada boom, not realizing like, oh my God, this is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. I should be studying music, 80, 90% of every single day. But being a founder, there's just so much work that needs to be done in order for the music to be rehearsed and created and performed by the musicians of the Phil. And, it's not a complaint. It's just a very obvious realization I remember talking to one of my friends about the SFL, and they're like, "You created."
Sorry, yes,
yeah. And I was like, "Wait, what? I'm a business owner? No, I just want to make music. I just want to make music." And they're like, "You're the CEO too." And I was like, "I do have that title." They're like, "Yeah." I founded the orchestra at the end of 2019. As of this month, we are now 4 years strong. And to create an orchestra through a pandemic and be like this successful, it's just like hats off to my team, hats off to the musicians of the SFL, and hats off to the patrons like yourself that come and support us, because it's not just me. I had the idea and I threw it out, and it takes the community to really embrace it.
Yes, but forever grateful that you have this fire and this inspiration just fueling endlessly in you. And congratulations to you to even
Thank you.
to even think like, no problem. You're an entrepreneur. This is something that hasn't been done in the way that you're doing it, and it is very unique. This is a major city, San Francisco, saturated with symphonies all around for hundreds of years. And yet, never one like yours. You bring something very special. Such a blessing that we have you here. In talking with you, I discovered something I didn't even know about. It was the El Último Sueño de Frida y Diego opera. I was shocked that something so large and so culturally deep and soulful was an opera. Can you speak to that?
So I am one of the scholars in residence for the San Francisco Opera. So I get assigned operas, and I write the pre-opera lectures, and I deliver the lecture an hour before the opera. El Último Sueño de Frida y Diego, which is interesting because this last year was the 100th year anniversary of the San Francisco Opera. And then this opera was composed by a Peruvian, Lithuanian, Chinese composer by the name of Gabriela Lina Frank. And when I was delivering this lecture, this opera, it was a Spanish language opera, and it was composed by a female.
Mm-hmm.
That opera was the first time in the SF opera's history, the first time, 100 years, that they performed an opera in Spanish. The first opera spoken in Spanish on stage in 100-year history. And the second historical thing about this opera was it was the first time they performed an opera by a female composer.
Are you kidding?
No. And so the audience was like, this is great. I was like, yeah, it's great. But is it really that it took them 100 years to put, the Spanish language on stage and a female composer? But you know what? I mean, I love the SF Opera. I love working with them. It's a wonderful institution. It's not about like when it happens, but the fact that it's happening now. And they're doing a lot of that now. And I'm very, very proud of the SF Opera and how they're really bringing in diversity. And not just on the stage, but with the composer and their scholar in residence. Me, this little girl from East LA, is now scholar in residence with one of the leading opera houses in the world.
The younger generation, the generations coming up now in their 30s, 20s, teens, they're hungry for what you have to offer. They don't identify with anything that's the establishment, I should say. Do you think?
I agree. I mean, it's a different mentality. This art form is deeply rooted in tradition. Tradition is very important. Tradition can be a good thing. It can also be a bad thing. And I think if this art form is going to survive, we need to make it for everyone. On every corner of that room, from the musicians on stage, again, to the board that runs it, to the audience members that come in, to the conductor that is directing the performance. So
powerful. Yeah, powerful. Are you seeing new, young, diverse composers and musicians and the entire industry coming forward now?
Yes. I mean, especially here in San Francisco, there's the Conservatory of Music. So there's a whole school of, young composers. San Francisco State has a school of composition as well. So there's young composers coming through there. So there's a lot of hungry, young, energetic, artistic minds that are coming through San Francisco. And I would assume that's the same for like major cities like LA and New York, Chicago, Boston. Esap Solidin, the music director of the San Francisco Symphony. He is very, very big on composing new works and being a champion of new works. So he does a lot of that. So, you can go to the symphony and it's not just 18th, 19th century composers, but he always has at least one contemporary composer on the program. So yeah, there's a lot of that that's happening around here for sure. For sure.
How would you get younger people into the concert halls, into the performances to support and start shifting, changing, taking space in those places?
So what we personally do as far as, the diversity is we don't like put on a concert and like hope diversity is just going to magically walk into the concert hall. We go do the legwork. Like I, have so many different relationships with so many different schools. And a lot of these schools are lower income schools or, schools that don't have a music program or the best music program. So I go find these schools. I find the music teachers. I find the principals and I send them, an introduction of who we are, what we are. And I offer them complimentary tickets and or very discounted tickets, to get them in. I work with the Mexican consulate and they help market our concerts to get the Hispanic community in there as well. Lipstick Lesbians. It's like a social organization where they fund different events around the city. I know the name is horrible, Lipstick Lesbians.
No, I love it. I know it's okay. We love the lipsticks.
There we go. But the founder of that organization, I work very closely with her and she helps promote our concerts as well. So again, it's like finding, these different communities and establishing a relationship with them so that they promote what you do. And have people come to your concerts.
Every time you answer a question, it's just like your work level goes 3 times higher. It's just like,
I know, I feel the stress. I feel the stress.
I'm so sorry. We're trying, we have got to make this life easier for you because we know your brain has not stopped thinking and creating and envisioning something completely different and new. You want to let us in on what some of those dreams are?
Well, I mean, for me, it's just to continue to fortify the San Francisco Philharmonic as an established San Francisco orchestra. And one of the things that's going to help solidify the future of the Philharmonic in the city is funding. We need a lot of help with funding. When I first founded this orchestra, I paid for everything out of my own pocket,
oh my gosh.
And we're talking about the rental of the rehearsal space and insurance, the rental of the performance space and that insurance, paying for the printing of the music, paying for the rental of percussion, paying for, key ringers in the orchestra, paying for transportation. Wow. We're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars on a concert. We've had a few grants that keep our heads above water, but we don't want to exist with our heads above water. We want to really secure the financial future of this orchestra so that we can continue to focus on the music and not about finding funding just to get by. But one of the other things that I want to do that hasn't been made quite public yet, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to build the San Francisco Philharmonic Youth Orchestra and just have this stellar full-on youth orchestra here in San Francisco. That's an extension of the Phil that is taught by, the principal players of the San Francisco Philharmonic.
Oh, wow.
That coach the kids. Yeah. I conduct and lead the rehearsals and performances of this youth orchestra. Sitting in an orchestra and having that experience is incredibly important for them. And it's not to train them and prepare them to become professional musicians. It's because that experience in itself, yes, gives them the music, but it also teaches them responsibility. It teaches them teamwork. It teaches them organization. It teaches them, community. It teaches them about music. It teaches them so many different things that will help in their development as they become young adults that go out into the world. And so I want to start one of those.
Okay, all the Latina listeners right now are going, girl, we are going to get that admin done for you. There are virtual platforms. We're going to set it all up for you. Okay, bring the help, ladies. Bring the help, because that is not your time. If everything else were to disappear one moment, I do not see you getting a job in admin ever.
No.
You'd be great at it. I don't see it. What about outside of the immediate industry? I know it's 100%, almost 100% of you right now, the classical music and creating and introducing and inviting people into this beautiful world you've created. But what about outside of that? What is a personal dream?
I don't really think so much about me, because I love what I do, that it fulfills me like already, just to be able to do what I do. I mean, outside of music, like what do I want? That's a great question. I've never thought about that. I just work all the time. But that's a great question. I do love to travel. I love, exploring the culinary arts. Before the pandemic, what I would do is I would work in Europe. I had an orchestra in Spain and then the opera in Bulgaria.
Oh, wow.
And so I would spend 3 months of my life there working and or traveling. And then 9 months out of the year here in San Francisco working with these orchestras. But it would be nice to travel without worry of work on top of that. But again, I feel bad saying that without the worry of work, because I love my work. Like it's kind of saying like, I want to go on a vacation without my baby. It's like, no, like, of course I'm going to bring my baby with me.
I did it all the time. They'll let you know. You are a huge giver, and giving to your mother and giving to your family and giving to the community, generations to come. Worldwide, and interesting turning that around, giving to yourself. What would that be? We'll have to catch that on your sequel.
Yeah, I'll have to think about that.
That's awesome. Think about that. Yeah, that's awesome. So you and I met in person. I made it a point. I stalked you. I did, to meet in person because you were having your first fundraiser recently in January here in San Francisco. Really, really intrigued with just who is this woman that walks into San Francisco and starts a symphony. And because of that, I get to join you on stage and do a little guest conducting that you already led me through lessons on. And it's blowing my mind and getting me really excited at the same time. Coming up in the performance on March 2nd at 7:30 here in San Francisco, we have sent out a blast for people to buy their tickets before it sells out. Have you ever done this before?
No, not with the SFL. The SFL has not had a guest conductor since the founding of it. So we're excited to have you come in and conduct them. And they're a great group of musicians and very exciting, and they're going to do great. But no, going into any performance, there's always a little bit of nervousness, a little bit. But I like that because it keeps me on my toes. I think if I were like extremely cocky and be like, it's as good as it's going to get, we're perfect and we're ready to go, I would be lying to myself and setting myself and the musicians up for failure. As a conductor, it's not about you. It's about the composer for a song and doing that composer justice by bringing their artwork to light. And then also your musicians, like setting them up for success and creating an experience that's going to be memorable for them, that's going to be educational for them, and one that they're excited to come back and do over and over again with you. When you're a leader, you're afraid and you're on the podium, they're going to know it. You're a leader on the podium and you're cocky, they're going to know it. You're a leader on the podium and you come in unprepared, they're going to know it. If you come in as a leader and you care, genuinely care, they're going to know it. So I try to be very mindful of the energy that I want of my musicians.
Wow. Okay. That's going to be your quote for the episode, because the whole time you're talking about this, I'm thinking this applies to every single position of leadership, regardless. And it's such a great visual. It's more of a visual when you're presenting it as a conductor to an orchestra, because at least we have knowledge of what that does. and the difference between the conductors and the sound that comes from being different. And you can see the direct tie to the influence immediately, and maybe even sometimes spontaneously with people when you have that energy of wanting the best for them and for you as a whole. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
This episode is going to launch right before the performance on March 2nd. So this will drop February 28th, right before, the Wednesday before the performance. And in this, both audio and video, it will be on YouTube. So we will have the information of buying tickets. It will be linked in the show notes. We will have the poster will be part of the YouTube video that will stay up there so they can always come back to, because this isn't the one and only performance. It's the one and only performance with me. But
true. It's your debut. It's your debut.
But there's more opportunities for people to participate and be in the audience to see this magnificent Philharmonic that you've created. So yes, what is the best way for the listeners in either in the immediate area or extended area to support you, your vision, and the San Francisco Philharmonic?
Two ways to best support us is to attend our concerts. So if you go to sfphil.org, you can see all of our upcoming concerts. And the second way is to donate whatever you can. You know, every little bit does count. It does matter. And you can do that as well on our website, sfphil.org. We are a 501c3. We have an EIN. So those are the two best ways to help us as of now, is attend our concert or donate to our cause, to our mission.
Beautiful. Absolutely. We'll get that out there. You're going to have a tremendous year again, starting off. And yeah, we can't wait to see where you go with this. But also giving back to yourself. I want some longevity for you to be able to keep doing what you're doing. So I think we need to give you opportunity for some self-care, self-love. Put your feet up. Don't worry about anything, friend. Nothing. That's what we want for you. Do you have any shout outs for your favorite cafecito place?
Favorite shout out would probably be, I love to go to the Wooden Spoon in San Francisco for a great brunch. And then also there's a wonderful Mexican restaurant that supports the SF Philharmonic here in San Francisco known as Santeria, which is a margarita mezcal bar, but also a lovely Mexican restaurant. They are supporters of the SF Phil and donate whatever they can. And then, of course, the Pilsner Inn bar, which is a gay bar that has been around for 44 years in the Castro. And they are also supporters of the SF Phil. They have supported us since day one at our inaugural performance. So these three institutions are very supportive of the work that we do and help in any way that they can.
Oh, that's cool.
Shout out to them.
We will honor their establishments as well to keep it going for everybody. Spread the wealth. That brings up one more idea, is some kind of sponsorship. Is there a sponsorship opportunities for the concerts, for the program, for...
Yes, if anyone wants to help sponsor, we have, the cost of the rehearsal space, the Can Bar Performing Arts Center. So if someone wants to sponsor that would be amazing. If someone wants to sponsor, the cost of the performance space, the Hertz Theater, that would be a major sponsorship that would really alleviate so much of the operational cost. And then also sponsorship of the musicians, because, a lot of these musicians are paid. So if we can, if someone wants to sponsor, the concertmaster or the principal cellist or the principal oboist or the music director, those are different sponsorship that are different rates depending on the position within the orchestra.
And all that communication can be done through your website.
Yes, sfl.org, or you can email us at hello@sfl.org.
Perfect. Okay. We're going to get this rolling. It's going to go big. Keep your energy. It's going to go big. Wow. So much gratitude. You're an amazing person, truly amazing. You're strong. You're beautiful. You're intentional. You're so compassionate for the community. So important. We are blessed that you landed here in San Francisco and didn't stay in Wyoming, did not stay in Davis, But we want to keep you here. It's a little greed we have. We want to keep you here, and we will do whatever it takes to keep you happy here until you're ready to move on.
This is my forever home. I want to stay here. So I will travel, but this is home. I fall in love with the city. This is it for me. So yeah, thank you so much for having me here and for being supportive. Like I said earlier, it takes a village, it takes a community. And so what you're doing for us is very meaningful. So thank you on behalf of me and the SF Philharmonic.
Lovely, lovely, beautiful. Thank you. And March 2nd, everybody, March 2nd, 7:30, Herbst Theater, San Francisco, 2 Latinas on stage, major city, major orchestra. You're going to be the first one. Iconic. We're going to get it out.
Wonderful.
I already sent it out to the Chronicle and the East Bay Times. I'm like, come on, show the love.
Good. That would be great. Thank you. I love doing this kind of stuff. It's important to spread the word, just not just about concerts, but who we are and what I do and what we do. So thank you for the platform.
Jessica Bejarano, founder, conductor, music director of the San Francisco Philharmonic. What did you think? Did that not give you all the feels? You may have felt angry, disheartened, put off by what Jessica went through, but when you listen to her strength, compassion, and love of creating music for all people, I hope your soul turned to championing her to ensure her vision lasts for generations. That's our role. As a comunidad, we need to support each other if we want to be seen and live in a world of knowing. A world where opportunity is endless and life dreams do come true. It's like she said, she was allowed into these spaces, but never accepted. Until she made her own. So that's got to resonate with a lot of you out there. Jessica shared all the ways that you can support the San Francisco Philharmonic so that representation and diversity runs strong. And our youth can see themselves in the audience, in the symphony, and epically on the podium one day. So please do your best in contributing to the San Francisco Philharmonic in any way that feels good to you. Spread the word throughout the comunidad and introduce the music into your chill playlist, putting your little ones to sleep, or soothing your mommy after a long day. All that information is in the show notes of today's episode, so go ahead, click through, find San Francisco Philharmonic's, send her an email at hello@sfphil.org. That's sfphil.org. And join us next week for our 15-minute Pod Club episode of today as we do the deep dive into the amazing life gems that you heard here today from Jessica Bejarano. Now she's stepping into her truth, ladies. Ciao. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Encuentras Your Voice podcast so you don't miss a single episode. They will automatically drop into your listening device each week. And we'd really, really appreciate if you take a moment to add to the reviews that we already have. Tell us what you like, tell us what you're hoping to hear, and we will get there. Share this with your friends and family to help us grow our comunidad, and keep following us on our social media to Encuentras Your Voice. We are so grateful to you for helping us grow this community and would love to learn of all the amazing Latinas who you know are creating the world we thrive in. So reach out to me on social media at Encuentras Your Voice, and let's keep leaning into our authenticity in pride. Help us make Encuentras Your Voice the place where you are 100% represented.